What's up, and welcome to the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, manifestation expert, money mindset and fulfillment coach, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur. Come sit with me while I spill the real tea on what it's like to practice using intentional manifestation, demystify all of the woo-woo and confusing bullshit that comes along with creating the life of your dreams, and give you a realistic view of what it's like to be on a personal, spiritual, and professional growth journey. The goal of this podcast is to support and guide you towards manifesting all of your dreams, shed light on the things that people are too scared to talk about, and encourage you to become the person who gets to have it all, be it all, and do it all. I am so happy you are here. Let's fucking do this thing. What's up, loves? Welcome back to another episode of the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. Today's podcast episode has been highly requested on Instagram and from all of the ladies that I get to connect with who listen to the podcast. And so today we're going to be talking about becoming the wealthiest and greatest version of yourself, because we all know that we're out here trying to make all that money, trying to live this life of abundance, live just like our best, most abundant lives, and manifest all of the things that we desire into it. And in order for you to manifest the life of your dreams, it's going to require you to become a different version of yourself than you are right now. And if you listen to the podcast, you will have heard me say this before, but what I mean by that is like the fact that if you were already the vibrational match to receive your manifestations, if you were already perfectly in alignment with it, then your manifestations would have showed up in your life already. And while a lot of people may hear that and be discouraged of like, oh, fuck, well, I don't know what else to do, or I don't know how to get there, or whatever it is, the reality is like, congratulations that you're not there yet, because if your manifestation wasn't showing up and you were the vibrational match for it, and there was just like something that was blocking you from receiving, then that would be even more frustrating. But recognizing that there are different pieces of your evolution that has to come into play to allow you to ascend into the version of yourself who actually is going to be able to not only receive your manifestation, but also be in the position where you can maintain it, or you can continue to grow on top of it. And not have like this massive manifestation show up on a shaky foundation, or a foundation that's about to crumble, because that's a lot of the time the reason that we do not receive our manifestations, because we wouldn't actually be ready to receive them. And that's been my case so many times in the past, where I've been like, well, fuck, I thought that like my manifestation was going to show up immediately when I wanted it. And then after not receiving it and evolving and becoming a greater and wealthier version of myself, I can look back now and be like, oh, duh, the manifestation didn't show up. Like, of course, I wasn't ready for it yet. And like an example of that is when I first started my coaching program, very first month in business, I was like, okay, I want 10 clients. And I ended up getting one client my first month in business. And at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't manifest the things that I wanted. Am I a failure? Did I not do something right? Is there something wrong with me? XYZ, all of the limiting beliefs, all the stories that come up. And now looking back at it, I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't have 10 clients at the time. I wouldn't have known how to handle that. At the time, I was still working 60 plus hours a week in my old job. I was brand new to coaching, and it wouldn't have been something that felt sustainable to me. And it also would have felt like something that would have completely overwhelmed me. So I can look back now and be like, of course I needed to evolve. Of course I needed the different lessons in order to become this greater version of myself, so that I could actually take on 10 clients and I could actually be in the position that felt like I could maintain it and I could continue to grow on top of it, as opposed to have it crash and burn and be in the position that all of those limiting beliefs and all of those false stories, false narratives that we create about ourselves would actually have won. And I would have continued to believe those things, as opposed to really continuing to step into the position of power inside of myself and choose the different things that I needed to do to evolve and, like I've been saying, become a greater and wealthier version of myself. So within this, for myself, what I have found and what I really encourage all of you to pay attention to and start to encourage your own self and like push yourself and challenge yourself to do is to ruin your reputation. Ruin your reputation as it is right now for all of these different things that you have been maintaining in your life. And so what I mean by this is like, if there are parts of your identity that you have held onto from the past to maintain connection, maintain the comfort that you have in your life, maintain your finances, maintain any and all areas of your life that you are not 100% fulfilled with right now, allow yourself to destroy and get rid of that part of your identity. So just to give you an example of the way that this has looked for me in my life, one of the identities that I had to destroy to become this greater and wealthier version of myself is the part of me that was the party girl, the part of me that drank for fun, for connection, for loneliness, for everything. And if you've listened to the podcast and you know my story, you know that alcohol has played a really huge part of it. And back in March of this year, I made the decision to quit drinking. So I am now a little over 4 months sober, and it has been crazy to see how quickly my manifestations have shown up in my life since I've quit drinking, because that part of my identity I was using as like sabotage. And it was something that I held on to because it created connection for me. So for years and years and years of my life, I was known as like the fun girl, the party girl. Like my literal nickname was like Drunk Cat, which looking back now, I'm like, oh God, like that's so painful for me to think about that version of myself that was just so drunk and thought that that was awesome. And that was like the only way that people could like her, and the only way that she could be fun, and the only way she could have sex, and the only way that she could connect with men on an intimate level. And it was really interesting to look once I stopped drinking as much before I actually quit drinking, that there were plenty of people in my life that were only there because they only liked Drunk Cat. They didn't like the sober version of me. They didn't like the version of me that was saying no to not partying, to not fucking around, to not drinking. And that was completely allowing myself to get rid of this old identity, to ruin that reputation as the fun party girl, as Drunk Cat, so that I could step into this position of like truly getting to know and learn myself as a sober individual. Because the honest truth is, and I can do a whole podcast episode on my drinking journey and what it's looked like for me to quit drinking and now truly be in the place that it feels like the best decision that I've ever made in my entire life. But when I was in that position, I didn't know who I was without alcohol as an adult. I didn't know how to have fun. I didn't know how to date. I didn't know how to talk to guys. I didn't know how to be in social interactions and social engagements without alcohol being a part of the equation. And through removing it and really learning who I am, I have created the most insane confidence. I've cultivated so much fun, so much connection on such a deeper level in my life than I ever did when I was drinking. When I was drinking, I was constantly in this place of like feeling as though I needed it to feel like I could loosen up, to feel like I could have fun, to feel like I could connect with other people. And I ultimately was so much more so in my head than I have been now since I'm not drinking. Like, I was so in my head. I felt like people were judging me. I felt like all of these things that felt gross to me. And removing the alcohol from the equation and facing all of those things head on has allowed me to evolve and expand and become a greater and wealthier version of myself. Because like I said earlier, it was such like a sabotagey thing for me. It was just like constantly something that was getting in the way. So that is one example. And another example is that in the past, I had the reputation of being like the quote unquote good girl, or the quote unquote like girl who was always there for everybody else, who wanted to maintain connection. And so one of the things that I really ended up limiting myself with is how much money I could make and how much money I was calling into my life, because I grew up in a community and specifically a family that saw money through a very, very scarce lens. And I've mentioned this in past podcast episodes, but like I grew up in a agriculture town, and about 30 minutes away from us is one of the most incredible ski towns. And growing up, there was so much like negative connotation, so much animosity towards the people who lived in the ski town, because majority of the people who lived there had a level of financial wealth that majority of the people in my little agriculture town didn't. And so with that, specifically for my family, because at one point, very, very beginning of my life, we lived in that ski town and weren't able to afford living there and ended up moving down valley, there was so much animosity around it. There were so many limiting beliefs and limiting stories that I was taught about money and people who had money being greedy, being wrong, being selfish, being like fucked up people, because that is something that my family and like a lot of the people around me saw as something that was bad, saw as something that because they didn't have it, that they could demonize and make wrong. So as I stepped into the position that I started to make more money than I ever had before, I started to have 10K months, 20K months, and was reaching greater and greater levels of financial abundance inside of my business, I noticed that the relationships that I was having in my life, some of the people that were closest to me felt so uncomfortable with this and were taking that old projection and those old limiting beliefs that they had about people with money and projecting them onto me. And as this past identity, this version of myself that did everything she possibly could to maintain connection with the people in her lives, I started limiting myself. I stopped making as much money as I possibly could. I stopped like really trying to go out there, be bigger, be more seen inside of my business and make a greater impact, because I didn't want to carry that projection. And I felt as though it was the only way that I could maintain that connection and that relationship with some of the people in my life. But as I gave myself permission to ruin that reputation and to redefine what it meant for me to be the greatest and wealthiest version of myself, I've truly been able to step into this place where I genuinely believe with every ounce of my being that the more money that I have, the greater the world is. The more money that I get to bring in and also give back out into the world, the greater not only it is for me in my life, but all of the people who are directly related to me, directly connected to me, but also for the people that are directly connected to them, and so on and so forth, making this greater and greater ripple effect in the world. Because the more money that I have, the better I'm able to show up for other people, and the better I'm able to give my time, my energy, and my resources, which is actually making a greater impact than anything ever could if I was to limit myself. But I'm not going to lie that within all of that, it was super uncomfortable to face both of these things, to face the relationship with alcohol and to face those projections that I had been taking on and making true for such a long time in my life. And I can see so clearly now, just like I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, that there's a reason that I hadn't been able to receive a lot of the manifestations that I was wanting in my life yet, because I hadn't learned the lessons that I needed to evolve. I hadn't broken out of the old identities that were holding me in this place of stagnancy and were holding me in this place of being small, being so much smaller than I was made to be. But that's the beautiful thing about this journey, is like we have the ability to every single day grow and change and shift and face these discomforts and run towards the things that are bringing us the most resistance, because that is actually how you are going to create the change inside of yourself to have that evolution and really ascend into this higher and greater version of yourself that is the vibrational match for what you're wanting to manifest into your life. And like I've said so many times on the podcast, and I will continue to say because I'm a very no bullshit girl, that shit's not easy. That shit is not easy. It would be so much easier to continue to roll with those old identities and continue to allow those same patterns to play out in your life. But ultimately, you have to do it. You have to do it in order to get to the other side, and you're going to trigger people along the way. And that is okay. That is more than okay, because triggers are the greatest way for people to take an internal look at what needs healing inside of themselves. And you are doing them such a huge favor by triggering them. So remaining in your truth, remaining in your power, remaining in this position where you are pursuing the life that you want to create for yourself, you are going to shine a bright ass light on all of the insecurities and all of the underlying blocks and triggers and beliefs inside of the people around you. And society has conditioned us to, when we trigger other people or when we make people uncomfortable, to dim our light and to back down and to remain quiet, remain small so that we are not making those other people uncomfortable. But I fucking beg of you, do not back down. Do not stop shining your light. Do not make yourself smaller in order to make other people comfortable, because like I said, you are doing them the greatest service by triggering them, because in their own timing, they will become ready to do their own healing work. And then they will have you as a lighthouse, as inspiration to guide them in that direction if they want to, if they're ready to. Because while a lot of us like to bring people along for the ride with us, drag them along and say, hey, we're on this journey and we're going to do it, people are only going to change in the time that they feel as though they're ready for it. People are only going to do things if they are making that decision for themselves. And so when you can choose to do it for yourself and then just shine the light, shine the way for other people to do so as well, then eventually, at least in my belief and my own experience, they will follow. Or if they want to follow, they will take on the different things that they've seen that have really been helpful for you and choose to take it on in their own way and walk a similar path. But like I've been saying, in order for you to get what you want, because you are the most important person in your life, you must be willing to break out of these old identities. You have to be willing to ruin your reputation as all of these past identities and really choose what is in alignment with the highest and greatest version of yourself. And I can say the world fucking needs it. Like, The world needs more people who are choosing to be bold and who are choosing to follow their truth and what makes sense for them, as opposed to just subscribing to what we are told we have to believe or we should believe, and really just like breaking out of the fucking mold. So that is what I have for you on this podcast episode. I hope that it has inspired you to take a look at what identities you are holding on to that are not serving you in your life, so that you can actually break free from them and evolve into the version of yourself who naturally and easily gets to manifest the things that you want into your life. And just like I said, it's not easy. It is not. I'm going to be so honest on that. But it is 110% worth it when you come out the other side and have all of the abundance that comes through because of it. And if this is something that you need support with, this is exactly why I created the Abundant AF Babe Academy, to help you become that higher and greater version of yourself who's naturally calling in the wealth, the money, the abundance, the love, everything that you desire in your life. So if you are ready to join the Abundant AF Babe Academy, click the link down below in the show notes to apply, and I would love to hop on a call with you and see if it's the perfect fit for you. But until the next episode, that's all that I have for you, and I am sending you all of my love. Oh my gosh, thank you for listening to today's episode. I am so grateful to have these no bullshit talks with you. If you enjoyed today's episode or the podcast as a whole, please spread the love by leaving me a review on iTunes or sharing the podcast with others. This is how I will be able to spread more of these good vibes and be able to make more of an impact on the lives of others. And if you're not already part of all of the goodness and communities that I have to offer, check out the show notes. I have links to the different ways that I can support you on your manifestation journey and help you live a life full of more money, fulfillment, and freedom. But that is all for now. So big love and hugs, and I will chat with you soon, babe.